everyone. So today we are going to be making cornbread. Cornbread is a great addition to any soup or chili recipe. It's very easy to make and it's inexpensive. Great recipe for the kids to make if you pre-measure all the ingredients for them, or even if you don't. So in your package, you're gonna have a bag with all your ingredients already in it. I have pre-measured the flour and that is in my bowl. And I'm going to add my cornmeal and my sugar and my liquids. I've already preheated my oven to 400 degrees and I have set aside an 8x8 baking dish. I have a piece of butter in there. It's Earth Balance margarine, and I'm just gonna kind of smear it around before I pour the cornbread in there. So this recipe comes together really quickly. There's lots of things you can do to make it more interesting as well. You can add vegetables to it. You can make it sweet. You could make it savory. You could make it just the way it is. If you wanted to make it a little bit healthier, you could substitute the oil for applesauce if you happen to have that on hand. It's just straight across 1:1. You could cut the sugar as well. It calls for 2/3 of a cup of sugar, and I'm going to follow the recipe today like that, but you can cut the sugar if you want it to be less sweet. You can make it dairy-free by using a nut milk or plant-based milk. I'm using oat milk today. I didn't have unsweetened oat milk as the recipe calls for, or unsweetened plant-based milk, so I'm just using what I have, which is a vanilla regular oat milk. So I think it'll turn out just delicious though. So as I said, I've got the flour already in here. I've pre-measured the cornmeal. I'm just gonna pour that in. The sugar is pre-measured, dumping that in. I have some salt and some baking powder. Dumping that in there. Okay, and then I'm gonna add the liquids. I've got a cup and a quarter of the oat milk. And then I don't have any applesauce today, or I would actually sub out the oil. It's quite a bit of an oil, it's 1/3 of a cup. So I'm just gonna measure that out and dump that in. So I'm using a vegetable oil. You can use an olive oil if you want to. Just be mindful that it may have a little bit of an olive oil undertone to the flavor. So I'm just going to mix that all together. You don't have to be afraid of overmixing this recipe. Just get it all mixed. Make sure that when you're mixing, there's no major lumps left in. And you want to kind of have the consistency of a pancake batter. Okay, it's perfect. So I don't have any paper towel, so we're going to get a little bit messy. I'm going to use my hand to smear the butter around. Make sure your hands are clean. Going to make sure that the pan is well coated. You don't have butter or margarine, you can use oil for this. If you don't have an 8x8 pan, you can use 9x9. You can cook it in cast iron. You can use a round pan, a square pan. This recipe is pretty easy, so just kind of use what you have. Okay. Get that grease off my fingers. And I'm just going to pour the ingredients in. I'm gonna pair this cornbread with a tortilla soup. So it'd be really delicious if you had jalapenos maybe to mix those into the batter. Candied jalapenos would be fun here to add a little bit of sweetness to the savory. If you want to hide vegetables in here from your kids, for your kids, you could do that too. I'm always looking for ways to hide vegetables and things to coax people to eat them. Okay, everything in the pan. Clean up the edges, make sure you're even. Give a little shake. Okay, so it's gonna go straight into the oven at 400 degrees and we're gonna bake it for 20 to 25 minutes. Keep a good eye on it. Don't be opening and closing the oven. You don't want to let the heat out and it'll cook unevenly. So maybe set a timer for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, take a little peek, touch it with your finger, see if it's spongy. And if you have toothpicks, you can insert a toothpick into the middle. And if there's still stuff clinging to the toothpick after you've done that, you want to maybe cook it for a few minutes longer. Set a timer for 1 or 2 minutes, check it again. And then your cornbread should be ready. Okay, so the cornbread needed an extra 5 minutes in my oven. Everybody's oven is different, and baking is not a perfect science all the time. So you're just gonna have to kind of go with it, keep checking it, keep adding a few extra minutes. I added an extra 5 minutes after the original few minutes that I checked in last. So it's nice and firm now. It's nice and brown around the edges. I've got a toothpick here. It's also, when I touch it, kind of bounces back up. So I have a pretty good feeling that it's done. It's crispy on the outside, and the toothpick came out dry. I might have overcooked it a little bit, but I'm sure it'll be delicious. So that's your cornbread.